Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on the Reflections pendant, and this pendant is using that Lunasoft cab from Eureka Crystal Beads' latest collection called Enchanted Mirror, and a few other beads from that collection as well. So here's the picture that they put along with the collection. I'll link the collection down below if it's still available. I have a couple of components that I'm working on. Like I think this would make a pretty bracelet, or this I'm working on. I'm not crazy about how it sits right now, so I would have to work on that a little longer, but we've used the cab from the collection. I did go a little rogue on my seed beads and used some from my stash just because, I don't know, my head was going in a certain direction, and this is what I needed to complete my vision. Okay, so I'll just show you the back. Here's the back, like a mirror, and here's the front. This is that 2-bead spiral chain, which is, to me, like a nightmare to make, but once you get it, you know, it's you learn it. It's much easier. I'll link the video tutorial where I have that that particular chain, so you can take a look at it and see if you want to make it. So anyway, I'm going to clear this off. We'll get a materials list going, and we'll get started. You need an 18 by 25 millimeter Lunasoft cabochon, and these are such a pleasure to bezel. They're just, and look at that red, that cyan or red. It's gorgeous. I love the glow. They have all of their, all the Lunasoft cabs just have this gorgeous glow. And then you'll need some bicones, and you have these in the collection, but you have them, I think they're in opal. Like I said, I kind of, went off on a tangent, but I think you have everything to make this, the pendant, in different colors in the collection. I have an 11-0 Miyuki and a 15-0 Miyuki. And ignore the bugle beads in there, they're just mixed up. And then I have this Miyuki 15-0 that's in a matte silver. You can use regular, just a Durcoat galvanized silver or pewter if you don't have this bead. I haven't seen this bead on Eureka's site, but maybe we could, they will get it in, or or something. Okay, we need a delica. This is from the collection. And I put a second delica in. So you see I alternated my delicas. Hard to see. You'll see when you do it. You don't have to do that. You can just use the delicas. I have the pearls. So I'm using the 3 millimeter pearls out of this pearl mix. I took out this little clasp because I think that's the perfect clasp for this. Now I have this glued in, these endings, but I think this would be so much more elegant. I don't think I could take it out now if you just put a toggle bar and toggle loop on as the clasp. I've got a little cushion filled with all my sizes beading needles. I think I used an 11 for the whole thing. I used 6-pound Fireline, and I used the thermally fused Tough. That's this stuff. I just get this on Amazon. 6-pound. And we need a little stop bead, so let's put one out. Oops. So stop bead. All right, I think that's it. So I'm going to clear everything off. We'll get started on the bezel. Okay, let's get started. So thread your needle with about 40 inches of thread. Put on a stop bead right in the middle, because we use both ends of the thread. So I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead 54 of my Toho Treasures. And I used 2 different colors. I used sort of a shiny and then a matte color because I thought it might be a little bit easier to see. I'll pull in close so you can, there we go. All right, so we've got 54 delicas. I'm going to sew these into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead. Like so. So just like that. And you could check sizing if you want by just sort of putting it around your cabochon. And that looks pretty good to me. Now we're just going to do our standard peyote bezel. So I'm exiting, because I'm alternating colors, every time I come out of a shiny bead, I'm going to put on the matte bead, or if you're just doing, one color, exiting this bead, you're going to skip a bead and sew through the next one. So here, let's do that. So here's my matte bead. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to skip this bead and I'm going to sew through the next shiny one. I'll just let me pull this a little bit tighter so you can see it. So just like that. And when I pull, first few are always difficult or a little, you know, wonky. So there. So that bead I put on is sitting on the previous matte bead. So let's do that again. We're exiting here. I'm going to pick up my next bead. Exiting here. I'm going to skip a bead and sew through the following bead, or just going to sew through, because I'm using my matte now, the matte bead, I'm just going to sew through the shiny bead. And you want to make sure that these pop up. It pops up on the previous bead. This is what it looks like. So you're just going to continue doing that all the way around. Okay, I'm coming down to my last bead. So I'm exiting the shiny bead right here. I'm going to skip this one and I'm picking up my bead. I'm going to sew through this, the shiny, and the matte one on the diagonal. So just like that. And that stepped me up so I can add some more beads on. Stepped up and I'm ready to put some more beads on. So now what we're going to do is just add a bead in between each sticking out bead. So because I've alternated, I'm going to put the, you know, my shiny one on, but you're just going to, you know, you're exiting here, you're going to sew through this next, picking up a bead, sewing through the next sticking out bead, etc. So here we go. Do a little bit. So here. So just going to do this all the way around. And at this, you know, when you're doing this, you can kind of like put your thumbnail in or your thumb in and just have it sort of curve a little bit. Like that one. You know, so sometimes you know, if you don't like a bead, you know, just put it aside and pick up another one. You know, sometimes they're, you know, they're not perfect. And also if you hear a fan in the background. I turned it off for now. It's actually my heater because it's so cold in here. I have my wrist warmers on and I always thank the lovely ladies who have knitted these for me, and I wear them all the time in the winter. They just keep my wrists warm. It makes such a difference. So thank you, ladies, for sending these to me. You're absolutely fantastic. Okay, so here we're just going to add this round on and then come back at the end and we'll step up. Time to step up. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through the next sticking out bead, which would be this one right here, and then the bead on the diagonal. So just like that. And now I have this round completed. Next up, we're going to add some 15-0s. So you're going to pick up a 15-0. We're exiting right here. Just going to sew through the next sticking out bead, up bead, whatever you want to call it, to add the 15-0s. So 15-0 through the next sticking out bead, 15-0. Just going to do that all the way around. Just like that. Okay, time to step up. So picking up my 15-0, I'm exiting this delica. I'm going to sew through this delica and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. And that is going to step me up, and I just want you to put another round of 15-0s on. Okay, let's step up. I'm still picking up my 15-0, exiting right here. I'm going to sew through this 15-0 right here, and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. So just like that. And this is what we have so far. So this is what we have so far. So I'm just going to leave this needle and thread. We might add some more beads on the other side. We'll see. And I'm going to take my stop bead off my other end of my thread and thread my needle. So you will be exiting this delica right here. So an interior delica, and here's the outside right here. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to sew through this bead. So I'm going on the diagonal. Just want to get to this edge so I can add some more beads on. Okay, now we're going to start working, whoops, on this side. So this is going to be the front now. So I'm exiting my delica right there. I'm going to pop my stone in, just see how we're doing for fit. It's looking really, really good. So I'm just going to hold it this way because it's easy for me to sew. So I have my stone in, holding it with my thumb, and I'm exiting this delica here. I'm just going to start my 15-0s on this side. So just picking up a 15-0, exiting here, this delica, I'm going to sew through the next delica. So a 15-0 in between each delica, like that. Just going to do that all the way around. Okay, let's step up. So exiting this delica right here, I'm going to sew through this delica and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. Just like that. So this is what we have so far. Time for another round of 15-0s. So just picking up a 15-0, exiting a 15-0, sewing through the next 15-0, which is the sticking out bead. 15-0, the next one. You got it. Keep adding those all the way around. Okay, let's step up. So exiting this 15-0, picking up a 15-0, sewing through this 15-0, and then the 15-0 on the diagonal. That's what it looks like so far. I've stepped up, exiting a 15-0. I'm going to pick up a 15-0. Here's where I've got that matte silver bead, just for contrast. I'm going to put that one on, and then I'm going to put another one on. So just like you're starting your round of 15-0s. And then I'm with no beads in my needle, I'm going to sew through this bead and then the bead on the diagonal, like that. And I'm going to add 15-0s, 2 15-0s. So 15-0 through the next 15-0. Yeah, you can see this a little better. 15-0 through the next 15-0. So adding 2 like that, and then sewing through 2 on the diagonal, and then adding 2, 1, 2, just like that. I'm going to do that all the way around. Adding the last 15-0, the group of 2 that I was putting on, like that. And then I'm going to advance my needle through the next 2 15-0s, so the 2 here, and then that first one of the group of 2, this one in between, and the second of the group of 2. So this is where we'll be exiting the second bead of the first group of 2 that we put on. Pick up a 15-0. Exiting here, I'm just going to come around, so here's my 15-0 on, and back through this one back here and through the original one that I was coming out of. It's going to pop that on, and that's going to make that little picot. Then I'm going to advance through all the beads till I get to the second bead of the next group of 2. So just sewing through the beads on the diagonal. Like that. And then I'm going to pick up a 15-0. I'm going to sew back through this one and this one. And that's going to put on your next little picot. So you're going to do that all the way around. Okay, I'm going to add my last 15-0. like so. This is what it looks like so far. And then, it seems like my lights are going a little cuckoo here. Let's see if I can move those a little bit. So I'm just, you can straighten out your little Picot here. There we go. Hold your thumb on it. So I just want to end the round again. So I'm just going to go past where I started there or ended there. I'm going to sew through all the beads until I get to the second bead, or this bead of this following Picot. So that's sort of ending the round and setting me up for the last round we're going to put on. So just like that. So you're exiting here. I just want you to sew through the top, that point of that Picot. This is what we have so far. Last round. I'm going to pick up a 15-0, a 3mm bicone, and a 15-0. And I went back to my bronze 15-0s. And I'm just going to, I'm exiting here. I'm going to sew through the top hole of the top bead of the next Picot. 15-0, 3mm bicone, 15-0, easy, right through that one. And you're going to do that all the way around. Okay, last 15-0, 3mm bicone, 15-0, through that top bead of the Picot, and then you're just going to reinforce all the way around by going through all the beads again. So I'll let you do that on your own. And this is what we have. So we're done with the actual bezel. I just have my little needle in for a marker. What I did on the back is I just added that little Picot. Remember where we did 2 beads, skipped until we got, and then we put 2 on. We skipped a few here, put 2 on, and then we went around and made the little Picot. I'll put a timestamp where we did that on the front so that you can do that on the back if you like. And you can even put something in between there if you like more beads or whatever, if you want to cover more of this, whichever you like. But I'll put a timestamp in so you can go back to that if you like. More round. Now I think it's really pretty just like this, but I'm into the vintage mirror vibe right now. All day I've been that way. I'm feeling very like I could be sitting in a vintage jewelry shop beading and just around all that gorgeous old jewelry, and it's tarnished and all that anyway. So I'm into it. So we're going to add one more round, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So we're going to add the round through the second delica from the front. So here are all my 15-0s. Here's my first delica. Here's the second one. Second round in, and I'm just going to work over 3. So I'm going to kind of try to center it to the top so that I can add the bail. My needle with about 1.5 feet of thread, put on the stop bead, left a tail to sew in. I'm going to sew through this delica right here. That's the group of 3 there. And we're going to work over, and I'm going to pick up an 11-0, the 3mm pearl, and an 11-0. And I love that pearl. I think that pearl looks so vintage and so antique-y looking. So exiting here, I'm just going to skip this one and sew through this one. So just working over those 3. Just going to pop that on. See, that's what it's going to look like. Kind of like that. And then I'm going to work my way over to this next shiny one. So I'm exiting this shiny one here, this delica. I'm going to sew on the diagonal through this one, and then through this one. And then I'm going to work over the next 3 beads again. Just be careful you don't get your thread caught. I did that a lot. I had to take the whole thing out because I kept getting my thread caught around the pearl. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0, the pearl, and an 11-0, and I'm exiting this delica, skip one, I'm going to go through the 3rd one. So that's going to be my sequence. See that? All the way around. So exiting here, sewing through this one on the diagonal, and then you can go right on the diagonal through the next delica. So you're going to work over 1, 2, these 3, 11-0, pearl, and an 11-0. Exiting here, going to sew through. So skipping one and sewing through the next one in line. So just like that. So that's what it's going to look like. I think that's going to be really pretty. So just do that all the way around, and then we'll finish up. We'll put a bail on and we'll have a pendant. Okay, last 11-0 purl 11-0. So exiting here, skip this one, sew through this one, like that. And here we have the round done. Now, if you want to add more, you can. I think there are plenty of opportunities to put more stuff around it, but I think it's so pretty as it is. I just think that looks so pretty on a long chain, or even a shorter chain, a choker. Wouldn't that be pretty? So I finished, I've sewn in my tail thread, and I did it really well. I went around the delicas on the back here and the side. I reversed direction. I've shown you how to do that many times. I did a lot of reversing direction. I sewed down. I ended up, down here somewhere. So that's a lot of sewing in. You just want it nice and tight. And then I did sew in my working thread just to secure it. And then I want you to thread your needle with I don't know, maybe 1.5 feet of thread, put on a stop bead, leave a tail to sew in. I want you to be coming up through this bead right here, this 11-0 before the purl. So maybe you want to start back here, come through here, this delica, and then up through this 11-0, or from the back you can do it, sew through the beads until you're exiting this 11-0 right there. Okay, I'm going to pick up 4 11-0s, exiting this one. I'm just going to turn it on the back for a second, and I'm going to sew through this one on the other side. So just like that. Don't worry about it, it's going to kind of collapse a little bit. And then I want you to sew through, so you're exiting that 11-0, I want you to sew through this delica that's under the 11-0. And then reverse direction and sew through this delica right here. Just want to work my way around to the other side. And this is going to make it nice and secure. Through this one, the one on the diagonal. Like so. Through this one. Wait a minute. Yes. Through this one. Through this one. Just got to get through this first part, through that one, and then through this delica that's under the 11-0. And then I'm going to turn it on the front. I'm going to push those to the side a little bit, and I'm going to come up through this 11-0 right here. And then up through these two. So I'm just setting myself up to put the herringbone on by sewing around the beads. So just like that. Don't worry about it if it's a little loose at the moment. Pick up 2 11-0s, and I'm going to sew through these 2 11-0s on the other side. Just sort of getting a base going like that. Just like that. Now I'm going to sew through the purl. Up through these 3 on the other side. Just like that. Okay, now I'm going to start my herringbone. So 2 11-0s, exiting here, this bead, I'm going to sew down through this one, Put those two on, and then up these two. Just like that. 2 11-ohs, down 1 on the other side, and up 2 on this side. Okay, so that's going to be your bail. So keep doing that until it's big enough to fit through, let's say, maybe a chain like this. I think that would be really pretty. So, you know, depending on what you're putting, a ribbon, depending on what you're putting through, will be determine the size of your bail. So get your herringbone done and we'll connect it on the back. Okay, so I have all my herringbone stitches on. I think I did about 10 or 11, not counting the setup row, so when I started actual herringbone. I think that'll give me a good size bail. So I'm going to turn it on the back. So I think I'm going to attach through this bead right here. So here, see these 3 up here, this center one? So I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and I'm going to sew through this delica right here. And then I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and I'm going to sew up through the side of the herringbone. So just like that. So you see how that connects? And then I'm just going to reinforce by coming around again, going up, coming around. Do it a couple times. You can even come around through the whole bail again, you know, where you started your herringbone, and reinforce that as well. And this is what it's going to look like. So I'll do that, you do that, come back, and we'll finish up. My bail is on. Now after you reinforce, I would attach, you know, coming down and around. I would attach to the actual bezel, so go through the, you know, on the diagonal through the delicas, reverse direction, so it's nice and secure, and then you can clip off that thread. Okay, we're back and we're done, and I love it. I think it came out so pretty. Of course, I would never show it to you if I didn't love it. So I put it on the 2-bead spiral chain. I'll link that chain in the, you know, in the description box below the video. But I think this is such a pretty, pretty piece. I love these beads. They're so pretty. I think this side looks just like a mirror, or I mean, it has that mirror finish, right? So I think it's like perfect for the theme of the collection. Make it in any colors you like. These just happen to be like speak to me because they're so vintage looking. Absolutely love it. All right, so I want to thank you so much for being here. More goodies coming up using this collection. See you next time. Bye-bye.